Welcome back to UAP Rant. This is now episode 9 in the series, and I'd encourage you all to look at the first lot of episodes before listening to this episode 9 in the podcast series, mainly to bring into context what I'm going to talk about today. I will allude to the previous podcast where we talked about Dr. Ning Li and Douglas Torr, repulsion field science, their gravity disk, and how that's connected to the research I've been doing in the field on orbs and rods and what we think is bisected rings or spindles surrounding these rods that work in a counter rotation around them to overcome inertia and the effects of gravity to orientate themselves in the physical dimension. So we're building on that, and of course, like I've said, we're publishing papers on that. I have a book coming out next year. But today, another person I want to talk about briefly before Dr. Ning Li is, of course, Otis Carr. Now, Otis Carr is a very interesting man. You won't find much about him in public science or the public domain. You have to hunt around for the history behind him. But he essentially was researching disk technology in the 50s and 60s and set up a company and ran afoul of the FBI and was prosecuted for fraud and served some jail time before he got out. Now, there's a long reason and history around why that occurred and why he was under investigation. The FOIA document or FBI file is declassified, which I have a copy of, so you can download that to look at why they were surveilling him. But essentially, he was working on this disk technology, and his claim was with the disk or flying saucers that it could get to the moon and back in a few hours due to the kinematics and the way the drive worked on it. And he was going to demonstrate that at a fair at one stage, and he even proposed that the somatic control of the disk was through connection to consciousness. So you only had to think about the orientation of the disk in physical space and where you wanted to go, and it would go there. So essentially, make the jump between two relative sets of coordinates in a scalar form, so that there's no vector. Now, he never got to test that because he ran afoul of the law. But the principle behind this technology, again, I'm referring back to, because there's a paper published now, came out in 2021 called Carr Technology, which actually looks at his engineering designs in a lot of detail. But essentially, he was also talking about magnetic semiconductors, counter-rotating plates, dielectrics and capacitors, again using spin and rotation to overcome inertia and be able to move this object with instantaneous acceleration from one position to another. So that background research connected with Dr. Ning Li's gravity disk that I was looking into, and Otis Carr's disk also connects back to the research and observations I was making in the field and documented using the scientific method. So, because the rods seem to have this similar sort of principle. I need the orbs and the rods. So the orbs with the bisected rings spinning around them, and then the rods with these spindles spinning around them backwards and forwards. We think that's what's going on, and of course that is similar to Otis Carr's disk technology with counter-rotating plates, magnetic semiconductors, and this build up a charge through this polarization of a a repulsion field. So, of course, if that's repulsing through polarization, you can overcome gravity and inertia, and the dynamics of that, or the kinematics, means that object can move in very uncharacteristic way of known airframes. In other words, instantaneous turning at hundreds, if not thousands, of Gs, and instantaneous acceleration with no velocity, with no increase in velocity. So that seems to fit the orbs and rods that we're looking at in the field as well, because they were doing exactly this, not very similar, exactly the same thing with our instantaneous acceleration and turning instantly on a dime, with no change or virtually no curvature and no change in velocity. So the two seem to be related to each other. So now we've got Otis Carr, Dr. Ning Li, and what seems to be repulsion field science. You've got the observations in the field that we've made with high resolution videography and photometry. So those all seem to line up and point, as I said, to this branch of missing science, all to do with field repulsion technology. So I'll leave it at that today. The next talk we're going to go back a little bit further in time to another person or individual, and we'll talk about him next time. So I'll leave it at that for now, and we will talk again soon.